and gentlemen, our country is falling apart.
The nation is in mourning tonight.
Our institutions are failing. Crime is out of control. It is our duty to fix it. We are touching on every sector of society. Race, class, and corruption. Nothing is off limit. No holds barred. The Cold Truth with Kim Cole. The power belongs to the people. Join us right here, Monday to Sunday, 4:45 p.m. to 5:45 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, our country is falling apart.
The nation is in mourning tonight.
Our institutions are failing. Crime is out of control. It is our duty to fix it. We are touching on every sector of society. Race, class. We are touching on every sector of society. Race, class, and corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, our country is falling apart.
The nation is in mourning tonight.
Our institutions are failing. Crime is out of control. It is our duty to fix it. Our country is falling apart.
The nation is in mourning tonight.
Our institutions are failing. Crime is out of control. It is our duty to fix it. We are touching on every sector of society. Race, class, and corruption. Nothing is off limit. No holds barred. The cold
tonight.
Our institutions are failing. Crime is out of control. It is our duty to fix it. We are touching on every sector of society. Race, class, and corruption. Nothing is off limit. No.
Tonight.
Our institutions are failing. Crime is out of control. It is our duty to fix it. We are touching on every sector of society. Race, class, and corruption. Nothing is off limit. No holds barred. Out of control. It is our duty to fix it. We are touching on every sector of society. Race, class, and corruption. Nothing is off limit. No holds barred. The Cold Truth with Kim Cole. The power belongs to the people. Join us right here, Monday to Sunday, 4:45 p.m. to 5:45 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, our country is falling apart.
The nation is in mourning tonight.
Our institutions are failing. Crime is out of control. It is our duty to fix it. We are touching on every sector of society. Race, class, and corruption. Nothing is off limit. No holds barred. The Cold Truth with Kim Cole. The power belongs to the people. Join us right here, Monday to Sunday, 4:45 p.m. to 5:45 p.m.
Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. To our regional and international audience, we say good evening and thank you for tuning in to The Cold Truth, where we get to the root of the issues affecting our nation. I am Kim Cole, and it's a pleasure to be with you today on Synergy TV, and we're also streaming live at The Cold Truth on Facebook. A little later on, you know that you will get the opportunity to share your views by calling in 622-9785 or 628-6093. Now, if I can ask my cameraman to pan down to my socks, we have, you know, a very special day today. So today is actually World Down Syndrome Day. Now it is observed on the 21st of March annually. On this day, people with Down syndrome and those who live and work with them throughout the world organize and participate in activities and events to raise public awareness and create a single global voice for advocating for the rights, inclusion, and well-being of people with Down syndrome. So as we get into this afternoon's discussion, addressing the nation's housing needs has reached a critical point. The reality is many people in lower income brackets and even some in the middle income bracket cannot afford to purchase a home. With most houses hitting the open market priced at over $1 million, the qualifying income to purchase a house is well above the average citizen's salary base. Meanwhile, all over the country, several government housing projects have been essentially mothballed. There are a number of properties, both residential and commercial, that have been left in a state of despair, abandoned, or forgotten. This, while the government moves full speed ahead with new developments and new projects. Yesterday, we spoke at length about the Viewfort project in St. James, Dr. Rowley's statements at the distribution, and Mrs. Hazel Manning's damning press release again, questioning financial discrepancies with the project. We also had social media personality Stark Grimes on our program. And Stark had captured footage from different areas where properties were left untouched, with no word on the plans for them or why they were not being completed in a timely manner. So today we have in studio former Minister of Trade and Industry and Investment and former Minister of Food Production and Land and Marine Affairs. Ooh, that's a lot. Mr. Vasant Bharat, to chat with us about the housing situation as well as the state of the economy and our political options at this time. Before we get into the meat of today's show, I'd like to take a quick look at some of the videos from Stark Grimes for comments from Mr. Bharat. And mind you, I have asked them to mute the audio because, you know, Mr. Grimes is a very colorful character in terms of, you know,
his use of language.
Yes, his abusive language. So, Mr. Bharat, welcome to this afternoon's discussion and thank you for being a part of the Cold Truth.
My pleasure to be here.
So, this is a development. I believe this is a school that Mr. Grimes would have highlighted sometime last week. I have been made aware that Mr. Stark, yesterday, who we had on our program, he highlighted just over 7 schools. He advised that there are 22 schools that have been, the construction began, and immediately when the current administration came into office, the work stopped. So, I mean, if you can have a look at just, you know, a brief, for another couple seconds of this video, we're going to get into the discussion. And I think that this would be the Cypress Gardens, development in central Trinidad. Now, this is another clip where the gentleman jumped the fence to try to look into what's happening at the Children's Hospital in Couva. As I just mentioned, there are a lot of developments, there are a lot of properties, commercial as well as residential properties. But first up, let's take a look at the St. Joseph's Secondary School. Mr. Director, St. Joseph's Secondary School, if I may. Now, when elections are called, Mr. Bharat, and the government changes hands, we inevitably see the casualties in form of projects being incomplete. What do you think accounts for the stalling of these projects?
Well, first of all, Kim, a lot of what we've seen here is as a result of years of neglect from administration to administration. Let us not be naive to blame any one particular administration. This is what politics has arrived at in Trinidad and Tobago, where unfortunately the work that one government may have done is seen by the other government that they must undo it. And so you have multiple projects coming forward from the last government that would be unfortunately neglected by this government, and vice versa.
And vice versa.
Okay? So it's not just any one government to blame. The fact is that this is a mindset that as a people we have learned to live with and accept as governments change. Now that is the real problem that we have in Trinidad and Tobago. The state of our politics and the level of acceptance of the population to have this wanton neglect and waste rammed down our throats. And it's only going to change when we demand more of our politicians. I mean, just to give you an example, you saw a clip there of several neglected sites, but there are many others across the country. In fact, a report was done by Afra Raymond, I think about a year and a half ago, and it suggested that there are between 11 and 12,000 housing units across Trinidad and Tobago that are empty as a result of it being dilapidated, neglected, vandalized, and so on. And it's not just View Fort that has been neglected, but there's been, Malabar Phase 3, there's been Cypress Gardens, Oasis Gardens, Almond Court, there's been Lakeview, Union Hall. Right here, East Dry River, you have this whole area where former Prime Minister Manning had cleared to put up 463 housing units. That is just left completely neglected. You have the two twin towers in Edinburgh, 500. The government then spent $115 million. It's still empty after having spent over $100 million. You have Benintento in Princestown.
Gardens.
So you have thousands of houses that are being neglected that would have cost hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayers' money to have gotten to the stages where they are. And government after government neglects them simply because they want to leave them, in most cases, as white elephants for the population to believe that the former government squandered funds. And this is what's wrong with our politics.
No, from an economic standpoint, would you say we would stand to benefit from completing these projects? Or does it make more sense to mothball some of them and focus our funds on new building projects?
Well, clearly it depends on the state of disrepair that these properties have arrived at. We don't know the conditions of all of them, but what should be done is an assessment should take place of all of these housing units and housing estates prior to any government embarking on new projects. Do a proper assessment. In some instances, there have been minor repairs that would have been required that have now become major issues because they've been left abandoned for so long. But in many instances, if a proper assessment is done, what you would be in a position to do is make a determination what the cost of repairing them are. And in some cases, you could actually move them on to people who need houses and get them to do the repairs themselves. So in other words, instead of selling a house at $600,000, you sell it at $350,000, but allow people to repair the houses themselves over a period of time.
Mr. Barack, I feel as though, you just jumped into my brains and into my thoughts a couple seconds ago, because I am of the view, and there are several people who are of the view, that, okay, the houses are literally, they're abandoned, they are not being distributed. As you rightfully said, millions and billions of dollars of tax dollars have gone into these projects. Why not distribute the houses on an as-is basis? And if I may, to the viewing audience, these are recommendations that we would have made, myself as well as the BCM, would have made to the HDC as well as the Minister of Housing back in 2016 when we completed the HDC drive. But I'm asking you, Mr. Barack, why not distribute the houses as is and let the people pay cheaper for it at a subsidized cost?
Well, what I said before, you've got to be careful that you're not giving people houses that are structurally dangerous. So you don't want to give them houses that have major structural cracks in them that's about to fall apart, like the houses up on on the Lady Young Road. So we've got to be careful, but I agree with you. A proper assessment needs to be done, and if it is that these houses can be fixed and there's nothing majorly structurally wrong with them, I agree with you. They should be sold on to people who are in desperate need.
This is the cold truth. You are aware, and I am aware, that at least 60 to 70% of the houses that exist are flat houses.
Yes, I agree.
Or duplex houses.
Absolutely,
So
and those can be given out almost immediately.
Right, so
because in a lot of cases, or what has happened is they've been vandalized to the point that the toilets have been ripped out,
right,
the sinks have been ripped out.
correct.
But let me tell you, somebody who is paying rent on a monthly basis, that is money down the drain, would happily take on a house like that as a project and utilize the same money they're paying rent to actually refurbish the house over a period of time.
Absolutely. I mean, the average rental for a two-bedroom apartment is about $3,500 TTs.
If you're fortunate, if you're lucky.
I mean, there are a lot of people who pay, at least 100,000 people pay
Correct.
well over $3,500 TTs per month. So that in itself, I mean, it gives me some sort of assurance that, hey, people can actually afford these homes. But again, you submitted an argument, not perhaps you directly, but an argument was submitted that due to structural issues, it may be unsafe to distribute the houses on an as-is basis.
But that would be a small percentage of the homes, and the rest of them could actually be distributed. Absolutely.
Now, it has been said that successive governments hold their hand on completing projects. Successive governments hold their hands on completing projects until it is closer to elections, when there is a significant push to complete housing to distribute in particular areas that may boost the votes of the party in power. Is there any truth to this? Let's be real. Is this a strategy that is used to increase a political party presence in an area?
Fortunately, and again, it comes down to the kind of politics we practice, where you hold off, giving people hope, and right at the crucial moment, you deliver. And all of the problems that they've had before, all of the issues they've had before, they forget. But that is, to me, that is a problem that Trinidadians and Tobagonians as citizens must resolve ourselves. We've got to ask more. We've got to demand more of our politicians. Politicians only do what they can get away with, okay? They only do as much as they will get away with, and if we allow them to continue to do it, they will do more.
And so recently you were in the news, and this ties back to my previous question. Recently you were in the news, and you were airing your concerns about construction in the St. Augustine Nursery area. What exactly were your concerns, and do they still stand?
Well, let me say at the outset, I have absolutely no problems, and we've said before, with people who are in need getting housing.
Correct.
We've just said that there are 11 to 12,000 housing units across the country where government can allow people to occupy these homes, and they couldn't be given out. There's also thousands of acres of land across the country that are less arable lands that could be used for building houses.
Right.
Not far from the St. Augustine Nurseries, actually. You have 77,000 acres of carony lands. So if you want to build houses, the carony lands are best suited for building houses, because the only thing you can grow on those lands those are called grasslands. So you can grow cane, you can grow grass, and so on. But the St. Augustine Nurseries represents 53 acres currently of, well, 70 acres now, of the most arable agricultural lands in Trinidad and Tobago. And it also has on it very important what's called germplasm. Germplasm are the mother trees of most of the fruits that we know in Trinidad. So whether it's mango, oranges, sapodilla, soursop, West Indian cherries, pomsity, piwa, all kaimit, all of those things are the mother trees, and the germplasm is kept at the St. Augustine Nurseries. If you put concrete on the St. Augustine Nurseries, you destroy all of those forever. Okay? We then become a land of importers of apples and grapes, and we have nothing else. And all of those fruits that we know, having grown up eating, they will no longer be available, because most of those germplasm is not replicated anywhere else in the country. So it's lost forever.
Right.
In addition to which, of course, beyond the agricultural issue, there is the issue of the environmental issues. You will have possible flooding because, of course, there are significant aquifers at the St. Augustine nurseries, and there's 7 Wassa wells also. So when it rains, the water goes through the aquifers, goes into the wells, and that water is used for the St. Joseph Hills. Once you put concrete on that, you clog all of those wells, you have no aquifers, the water has nowhere to run, but of course into people's homes and so on. And then you have the issue of traffic management. And when you put 500 housing units in St. Augustine on the southern main road, which is already overheated with traffic, you have a situation where are they going to get out and in from? There's going to be massive traffic chaos. So there are a lot of issues involved, and what we're saying is that, look, this is really just a naked grab for political space to put housing in a marginal constituency. Everybody knows that.
So is it voter padding?
Well, clearly it is. It is because, as I said, there are thousands of acres of land
elsewhere,
just minutes away. Plus, of course, we have all of these housing developments that are unused that we could put houses on and provide housing for people.
Now, we've got to take a very short break, but when we return, I'm going to open our telephone lines. We're going to get interactive, and we're going to get into the meat of the discussion. You are watching The Cold Truth with Kim Cole and Mr. Vasant Bharat. We'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, our country is falling apart.
The nation is in mourning tonight.
Our institutions are failing. Crime is out of control. It is our duty to fix it. We are touching on every sector of society. Race, class, and corruption. Nothing is off limit. No holds barred. The Cold Truth with Kim Cole. The power belongs to the people. Join us right here, Monday to Sunday, 4:45 p.m. to 5:45 p.m.
Edge Solution is a brand of hair and skin products that are used to treat different issues. We offer a hair treatment oil that repairs traction, alopecia, and thinning hair and edges. A scalp treatment cream that's used for dandruff, dry scalp, folliculitis, and other funguses that are in the scalp. We also have a shampoo and conditioner that works along with our cream and oil, giving you maximum benefits. Our shampoo is peppermint infused, which helps unclog pores and aid in hair regrowth. We also have a calming skin lotion, which is excellent for psoriasis, eczema, and other skin issues. All our products are all natural and contains no harsh chemicals and are 100% handmade.
The Red Edge Mall at the corner Mooneyram Street and Western Main Road, St. James, where parking is available for our valued customers on both sides of the street. Red Edge Mall caters for the health conscious, the tastiest soups you'll ever find, the freshest produce, trendy clothing for the fashion dons and divas. Experience the most exotic African male and female outfits, costume jewelry of all descriptions. If you're one who pays special attention to your hair, welcome to the home of hair. Get the latest and widest variety of phones of all descriptions and repairs on the spot at the Red Edge Mall. Closing time 9 p.m. The Red Edge Mall, making shopping affordable. Powered by the Black Caucus Movement.
In the Caucus Movement, we're making a statement. The Black Caucus Movement, making a statement. Yeah.
Welcome to Tanti's Creole Food Delight. We are located at Orsa Spaniard and Duke Street, Port of Spain. Graduated from THCI, which is they call Hotel School at Shagaramas, and I the owner of this business, and we have daily lunches, which is from Tuesdays to Saturdays. On a Saturday we do breads, sweet bread. We also have soups, oxtail soup and cowbell soups to your delight. We also have different menus daily from 11 to 3. We also cater for different occasions like weddings and birthday parties. We always want to ensure that the customer is satisfied with the end product here at Tanti's Kitchen.
Ladies and gentlemen, our country is falling apart.
The nation is in mourning tonight.
Our institutions are failing. Crime is out of control. It is our duty to fix it. We are touching on every sector of society. Race, class, and corruption. Nothing is off limit. No holds barred. The Cold Truth with Kim Cole. The power belongs to the people. Join us right here, Monday to Sunday, 4:45 p.m. to 5:45 p.m.
Welcome back to The Cold Truth. I am Kim Cole, and in studio this afternoon we have Mr. Basant Bharat, who is sharing his 2 cents as it relates to the housing issue in Trinidad and Tobago. So Mr. Bharat, we stopped at alleged voter padding being the reason for this development being built in the Valsayn, St. Augustine area. Can I ask you who built the development, the Orange Grove, the East Grove development in Valsayn? Which administration built that?
The former PNM administration in 2002 built that. Again, that was lands that belonged to the St. Augustine nurseries. And I would want for us to get to a position as a country whereby the St. Augustine nursery is declared as a heritage site, such that no government can touch the lands for housing, because it truly is. It's like putting housing on the botanical gardens, and I don't think that from the perspective of maintaining our heritage, that is something that we should be doing. Not particularly when we have, as I said, so many housing areas that are empty, dilapidated, vandalized, not being used, abandoned, and then we have so many thousands of acres that we could potentially use.
Oh, so we've got to stop to take this call. And our telephone lines are open 622-9785, 628-6093. Good afternoon, caller. You are live. Hello. Hi, good afternoon. Hello. Caller, you're welcome to call back 622-9785.
Hello.
Tanti.
Hello. Good evening, Miss Cole. As usual, I look forward to seeing you. Yes, oh my God, you're a ray of sunshine, although dismal today. Miss Cole, every day you get better and better and better and betterest. The English dictionary doesn't have that word, but that's your word. And every day your guests get better, better and betterest. Mr. Basant Bharat, a special good evening to you too, sir.
Good evening.
Now, my Miss Cole has been a champion for housing for us, the underprivileged people, sir. And what I was happy to hear you say, honestly and truthfully, that each successive government do their own kind of vote padding. That's my understanding. Give out houses to get votes. Now, we the people know that, yet we go back and vote for the PNM and the UNC or whoever it is, because they fool us, speak with forked tongue, and tell us they will house us. And as I said to Ms. Cole, I will not be voting PNM or UNC. No way. Not what I'm seeing happening to the underprivileged, the houseless, the everything else. In particular, a home over your head when you're elderly. Sir, I am concerned, and I saw you walking with Ms. Suku, agriculture chairperson. And I am concerned as an elderly with all these ailments that I have. We are, as you touch 50, you're like preparing, degenerating. So you have all these ailments. Now, to build a housing project, I might myself and friends would like a home, and you tell me, look, I'm going to give you a house in Curette, where the nurseries used to be. You know what concerns me, Miss Cole?
What's that?
I don't have cancer, but before I go into my box, am I likely to come down with some form of cancer because of all those chemicals? Mr. Barrett, sir, you were a minister. Why is it our present ministers and Minister of Land and Fisheries don't come out, and people that are educated in this field, and tell we, the elderly people and the uneducated people, we deserve to know. You have been doing a wonderful job. I just heard you talked about, you know, that not being the appropriate place, and yes, it's voter padding, because you would not lie, sir. You're one of the ministers that I know tell the truth. But I have been also, let me be presumptuous, Miss Cole. I have been asking for a party, because I cannot stick my little finger in the ink again unless I get a party, and I don't see PNM or UNC being a party. I want a new party, sir, that could come, and I don't like to use the phrase serve the people. I think that was misused. And help the people, and help the people, educate the people, be fair to the people. Sir, I am out there calling on people. You know, Miss Cole is smiling, so you know what? I think it's time to say bye-bye, out, and I know a lot of people would want to call in. But, you know, Mr. Barrett, I'm an admirer of yours, and I hope, sir, you continue to speak the truth always, and always help the people. Miss Cole, thanks out.
Thank you so much for your support, Tanti. Mr. Barrett, I must let you know that Tanti is an avid caller. Tanti is one of, you know, you can bet, you can guarantee Tanti is going to call into this program, and Tanti loves you.
Oh.
I don't know what it is, but Tanti absolutely loves you.
But you see, the points that she's raising there are what's felt by large portions of the population, that after 55 years of independence, you have, not just in housing, but you have a situation where almost all of the institutions of state have either failed or are failing.
Right.
Whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, whether it is transportation, whether it's the economy. You have, there's very little that works. The judiciary, well, of course, we understand what's going on now in the judiciary with a whole, you know, right. So you have a situation where almost after 55 years of independence, almost all of our institutions have failed our people or failing our people.
Right.
You have widespread social decay.
Right.
As reflected in the amount of horrible crimes, the number of horrible crimes we're witnessing against women and children, a lack of values and ethics, what we've lost, beliefs that we're losing. You see how children are behaving in schools. So that's the second thing, so widespread social decay. You have a situation where after 55 years of independence, we have failed to restructure our economy for the new world, away from oil and gas. We know that we have a commodity that is being depleted, both in terms of pricing and in terms of resource, and we've done nothing. Successive governments.
So you admit that
we've done nothing by absolutely government after government after government. They pay lip service to agriculture. Okay? But when they get into office, my own government bulldozed crops, which I nearly lost my job over because I went and protested with the farmers, because I felt that I could not condemn something that the PNM had done, and I stood up in front of bulldozers to prevent them from bulldozing crops, and sit in my own government and condone it. That would be hypocritical.
Right.
So government after government come in, they talk about agriculture as being a lifeblood of the economy, as a way of diversification of the economy, as a way of feeding our people, as a way of having food security, as a way of saving foreign exchange, and they do exactly the opposite when they come into office.
Right, so let's...
So 55 years after independence, we depend on the rest of the world to feed Trinidad and Tobago, because 85% of our food is imported. The Minister of Finance recently stated the food bill is now over $7 billion. God forbid something happens and the ships that bring food to Trinidad and Tobago is diverted somewhere else in the world because there may be some world geopolitical problem. How are we going to eat? What are we going to eat apart from each other? That's what's going to happen, because what is going to happen, what is going to happen is we're going to quickly and swiftly become a Venezuela, which is what is where they've got they're one of the wealthiest countries in the world in terms of the resource they've got under the ground, but one of the poorest in terms of the quality of lives of their people.
We've got to stop to take this call. Hi, good afternoon, caller, you're live. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon.
Hi?
Caller,
The
you are
call?
live. Yes, my dear, you are live.
Hello? I just wanted to contribute something to you, right?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, my dear.
I am a born PNM, right?
You are a what, sorry?
I am a graduate to UNC.
Okay.
Because what was going on in the country, right?
Right.
And something happened to my daughter, right? And now I want to know what is the position for single mothers in state with this program. Because the stuff I these people and then my child is not going to school, nothing is going on in this country, and nobody seems to care. And the people who are in charge treat them like a dog. Because you're a single mother with children, and nobody takes care. I want to know if you could come, if you could say something to her, because I really love you, Miss Kunko. And so far I see you in his voice, I have you, and I am a Black Caucus member, and I would just like to see if I could get some of my people and then to see if they could say something about this. Because I must say, with this stuff right in this country, my children not in school, suffering my children, and they're doing a wrong wickedness, and I want someone to answer why they can't have a state if they're better than this.
Thank you so much for your contribution, caller. I mean, very frustrated single mother.
Yes. I want to say that there are going to be a number of people who are in that position of all races. Okay? Unfortunately, the caller chose to identify the fact that she was speaking essentially on behalf of her people, African people, and African people shouldn't be suffering. The fact is that no Trinidadian should be suffering, regardless of race, because this country has the kind of resources to be able to cater for all its citizens. And so therefore, if we govern this country properly, what should happen, or the vision of any government should be, the ability to fully utilize the resources of the country so that goods and services could be passed on to the entire population, free of nepotism, free of bias, and free of corruption.
Mr. Barr, so you took me down.
But what we have is, unfortunately, a situation where we have polarized our nation to such a point that we disregard the actual issues and we jump into a section and vote race. So we protect our own regardless of how bad things are. So in other words, if things are bad, if somebody is caught stealing, well, you know what? They thief more. The next side thief more. You never hold your own accountable. And that is why we are in the situation where we are today, where politicians get away scot-free with whatever they do because they are protected by the tribe to which they belong. And until we can get away from that tribal mentality of how we vote, and politicians have put us there, they're the ones who have forced us into that. Look and see what happens outside of an election period. Look and see what happens when people go to the stadium together, when people go to a cricket match together, when they go to a football match together. We're all Trinis together, regardless of race, right? We live together. We have neighbors who are of different races. We have family who are of different races. We have members who you don't know what race they are because they mix up completely. But when election time comes around, the politicians pull out the race boogie. And they make it seem as though you are disloyal if you don't vote for them because you look like them. And that is the biggest problem we have in this country.
Mr. Bharat, it's like you shooted yourself in the foot because you were a politician.
I am. I'm still an active politician. But that does not mean that we should not strive to change it.
Okay, but when did you have this epiphany to change it?
It is not a question of epiphany. I've always felt like this.
Okay, between 2010 and 2015, and you have taken me down this road. I have
yes,
a fixed script, but
sure.
I have to go there because race became a topic. Between 2010 and 2015, the African community in particular felt a sense of being marginalized as it relates to this to the People's Partnership government that you
I was a part of.
You were
yes.
a part of.
Absolutely.
As it relates to the SOE, the state of emergency, which has been deemed illegal by many. Some 8,000 African men were arrested. You know how the
Of
SOE
course.
went?
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to that, as it relates to the resources that you rightfully said belong to all the citizens of this country.
Correct.
We saw the creation of thousands of East Indian millionaires between that dreaded 2010 to 2015 period. And I am asking, and I've got to stop to take this call. Hi, good afternoon, caller, you're live.
Stopped in your tracks.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. Cole.
Yes, dear, good afternoon.
I must say it is a wonderful program, and we have been following you and looking at your program from the inset. I must say thanks very much to that wonderful gentleman, Mr. Barr, there with us. And you know, looking at both of you and hearing you and thinking of Mr. Barr in the past, the contributions he had made, and the knowledge he has grown with, and being there in the politics, and the experiences grown with him, and with your knowledge. You know, I don't see reasons why persons like both of you couldn't get together and start off a new party, as we need new faces. And all it takes is two conscientious individuals, persons like you who are hardworking, or both of you are hardworking, and thinking more of the nation than of the pockets. And that is what we need at the moment. And I am certain that our country, our nation will really move forward. For we have been burnt badly. You two, or both of you, have been burnt badly in the past and are looking and thinking of moving the community forward. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful program. And thanks very much for Mr. Barr from the time off he has taken to be there with us. Have a pleasant evening.
Thank you so much for your contribution, caller. Mr. Barth, would you accept that it may be difficult for the general populace, or the populace, at least within the East-West corridor, to, you know, accept your position now, given the fact that you would have been there, and it may be perceived that you sat in the belly of the beast, you said absolutely nothing. Now that you are no longer a part of, well, you're not there in terms of an MP nor a senator, all of that. It is, I know that you have been highly critical of the party in, you know, many instances that I choose to not, you know, go into. Do you think it is fair to accept that the population may not be accepting?
Okay, and that's a fair point. So let me say, it doesn't mean because whilst I was in government, you didn't hear me criticize policies of the government that I didn't do it internally. There was one issue where I openly criticized the government by protesting against my own government by walking with farmers and protesting against the bulldozing of crops.
Right.
And I don't think that has happened in recent history with any government minister, particularly a senator who being a senator, could have lost that job at any given time because I was not a member of parliament.
Right.
The second thing is, I've deliberately chosen not to be involved in frontline politics with the United National Congress. Remember, I was a senator and I resigned. I resigned to be able to fight the internal election simply because I did not agree with a lot of things that the party was doing. There's a reason we lost the election in 2015. That reason was the party lost the confidence and the trust of the population, regardless of whatever it may be said by the leadership that the EBC stole the election or PNMT. This is nonsense, or that the media is against them. All of those people were with them in 2010.
Right.
How it suddenly they changed and went. You see, I believe that the only way you can shape the future is to confront the present with the problems you've got and fix it. Don't put aside these, don't make excuses and give absurd reasons for why you would have lost an election. The facts are that, yes, I was a member of a government that lost the trust of the people. I came out of that and I said enough is enough for me. I am not interested in that kind of politics. I chose to resign and stay out and fight from the outside. I have had many calls since in the last 2.5 years to come back and assist. I refuse to do so once the politics remains the same as it is, because I'll be wasting my time and I'll be wasting the time of a lot of people who want to get involved and fix things for Trinidad and Tobago. So the answer to your question is, yes, I was in the belly of the beast. Yes, I was critical inside. Yes, I showed that I was not tied to the government, and my navel string wasn't buried in there, such that I couldn't openly criticize them, because I did. I came out and I walked with the farmers at the risk of losing my job. And when we lost the election, I came out and I said, enough is enough. I need to do I'm prepared to stand, and stand alone if necessary, to do something about it.
Right. Did you protest the SOE?
Well, you see, you have to remember, Kim, that we all would have had portfolios. That would have been the portfolio of the Prime Minister and the Attorney General. They would have made that decision. That would not have been a decision that would have been sent down to every person. I would have been Minister of Trade. They wouldn't say, well, what do you think? We should have a SOE. No, that would have been based, they would have come to Cabinet, would have been based on discussions that would have been had with the security services, with the advisor, national security advisors, and that decision would have been made. Now, as part of the government, I have to accept collective responsibility. I understand that. But you must understand that ministers of government have different responsibilities, and you will not always be involved in every single decision that another minister or ministry
takes. So when you protested agriculture, were you agriculture minister then, or you were trade minister then?
I was Minister of Agriculture at the time, and the bulldozing of the crops took place without even a discussion with me, and it was totally contrary to the policy of the government.
And we've got a stick a pin to take this call. Hi, good afternoon, caller. You are live. Hello. Hi, good afternoon.
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon, caller. You live?
Good afternoon.
Yes, my dear.
I am amazed.
Caller, could you please listen to me on your telephone and not your television?
A minister. I'm listening to you on my telephone. But what I'm amazed to hear a minister saying that he criticized his party's policy, when the action he's talking about, those people were squatting on state lands, they were served all relevant notices, and they were even paid for their crops, which the government is not required to do with squatters. They went back and replanted the crops. And the government went in the second time, this is the public servant, and did their job and refused to pay further compensation. Mr. Barrett went and arranged that taxpayers' money would be paid the second time for these people. Under the Pandey government, the law on squatting was for residential squatters, you had to be there in 1995. And for agricultural squatters, you had to be there in 1991. 22,000 people applied for letters of comfort, but for some strange reason, the Ministry of Agriculture, under Mr. Barrett and others, have 170,000 people who they have to regularize and squatting. And this is the problem with this country. We don't understand that a minister's job is to carry out the law. It is not party policy. And the law is against squatting. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Let me just contribute to that.
I can't hear you at all.
Yeah, let me just contribute to that. Because of the levels of bureaucracy that have existed in Trinidad and Tobago for the last 50 years, there are many people who are legitimately on lands, and they've been on those lands for many, many years, but they have not been able to get leases. Their leases have expired. Their leases expired 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Right.
And because of the bureaucracy in the system, they have not been able to have those leases renewed. Okay? And that is pervasive across Trinidad and Tobago. So the person who is on those lands are not able to go to the bank, for example, and use those lands as collateral to do anything. And they are essentially voiceless in their quest to do anything, because, of course, in the majority of cases, most of these people are uneducated, and therefore their pleas fall on deaf ears as far as the bureaucracy is concerned. And in this particular instance, you would have had people who had been on lands in Egypt, Trace, as well as in Pineapple Smith in Aruka.
Right.
Those people had been on those lands for many, many years. The crops that were bulldozed were fruit-bearing and crop-bearing crops at the time that they were bulldozed. There was no discussion that was held with the farmers. They just went in at one Easter Monday morning and bulldozed those people's crops. And you cannot, you see, this is the problem we have. You cannot on the one hand use words, flowery words, to say we support agriculture, but your actions are contrary to those words, where you actually physically go and bulldoze crops without having a discussion. And that was the issue.
That was the issue. Now, Mr. Barath, I want to come back to housing.
Sure.
How do we fix or solve this housing issue? Now, I understand and I am mindful that you cannot and you should not encourage anybody to break the law as it relates to, you know, these abandoned HDC properties. Now, I am a taxpayer. As long as you buy bread, you pay VAT on it as tax. If I were to go into one of these houses, now the houses are being vandalized as we speak and as we have seen. The doors are missing. If I were to enter into one of the premises and occupy the house, that house, what would happen to me?
You would be illegally trespassing because the house doesn't belong to you, and you would be evicted.
So who does the house belong to?
The house belongs to the Housing Development Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago.
But paid for by the taxpayers.
Correct.
Now, if 11,000 to 12,000 people go and occupy all of the houses, what is going to happen?
Well, that's a hypothetical situation. It's not likely to happen. Of course, if that did happen, I mean, the HCC would have to use the arm of the law to remove people. You know, but it really it ought not to come to that. What the government, any responsible government, should do is to properly identify these housing development estates. Do a very quick, not a long bureaucratic, long-winded survey, but do a very quick survey, and you can get people in there very, very quickly. And as I said, make a determination on those houses that are habitable, that might just need a lick of paint. Get people in there. The ones that require some degree of refurbishment, again, offer them at reduced prices to people. And you know, get people into homes. You have a lot of people who are living on the streets today. You have people who are unable to pay their rent. You have people who really and truly are suffering. The lack of having a house or proper shelter over your head is one of the most stressful things that a human being goes through, other than not having food. Okay, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's food and shelter. Okay, and so therefore, you know, you hear people, when I was a member of parliament, as I'm sure it would be for all members of parliament, the one biggest issue that people have is, when they come to see you, is they want a house. Okay, and you have 12,000 houses across the country that is not being used. I mean, you know, and Mr. Imbert rightly says they haven't rioted yet. We are a very passive, peace-loving people, but you know, we are far too tolerant, in my opinion. You know, look at the simple situation of traffic, of people having to come to work in Port of Spain every single day from south. Okay, I actually experienced it last night because I was going to a function at Gulf City and had to turn back at Carson Field because it took me an hour and a half from Grand Bazaar to Carson Field. And I wasn't even halfway there yet. I just turned back and did not go to the function eventually. And I think to myself that people have to go through that every single day of their lives. They come from south to work in Port of Spain, and they have that 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and then another 2.5 hours going back. Think of the loss of productivity. Think of the health problems.
Absolutely.
Think of the issue on the effect on their children, on their families. Just why can't a government just fix that problem? People go to the moon, right? People do all kinds of things. You want to tell me we can't fix that simple problem?
So can you fix it?
That problem can be fixed. Of course it can be fixed. Of course it can. There's no problem in Trinidad and Tobago that is insurmountable. The problems we have in Trinidad is we cannot fix problems. We have no solution because the people we throw at the problems don't have the capacity to fix it. They're incapable. And in most cases, Kim, and unfortunately, why we are on our collective knees as a country today is that the people who go into politics, unfortunately, many of them go into it for the wrong reasons.
We've got to stop to take this call. Hi, good afternoon, caller. You are live.
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon. You're live.
Yeah, Ms. Kim?
Yes, my dear. You're live.
What you just said there about and the former minister said that wouldn't happen. If I was the people, well, I'm a senior citizen and I'm a property and battling. If I was the people at Trinidad and Tobago, I'm moving drums and occupy the houses and wait for the authorities to come. Because we money wasting, we paying taxes, and there's a certain nonsense going on. Because this morning, I was watching Trinidad television with the guy with the skate on, Mr. Rizzo, they call him.
Right.
And the panorama operated in Greece, there's corruption right through.
Right.
And the panorama very good. You know? So I back you on the people at Trinidad and Tobago go and occupy the houses. Okay, that is my contribution, and you have a good day.
Thank you so much for your contribution. I maintain I do not encourage anybody to break the law. Now, Mr. Barath.
But you see, the bureaucracy encourages, the bureaucracy encourages the frustration that leads to this type of sentiment. And you, in many cases, you can't blame people who are, they don't have a house, they're driving every day past housing estates that are empty, abandoned, houses that are empty being lived in by goats and cows.
And bats.
And bats. And you having to drive past and see that every single day.
Mr. Barath, if it were me, Trinidad and Tobago, the region and the international audience, if it were me and I had nowhere to live, I would have gone and moved into one of the houses and made myself comfortable. Hi, good afternoon, caller. You are live.
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon. Hello?
Hello?
Could you please call back 622-9785, 628-6093. Now,
good evening again, Miss Cole. I'm sorry to bother you again,
no,
Miss Cole.
Tanti, you welcome
but
to
a caller called a while back, and he made a brilliant suggestion. He said you're everything that you could think of, articulate, brilliant, fabulous, everything, educated. So is Mr. Barrett. I believe I read Mr. Barrett has several masters. Now, Miss Cole, he suggested you form a party. May I add two names, Dr. Farrell and Dr. Kublal Singh, and party form, new party. We have hope. Thank you, Miss Kim. Have a blessed day. Thanks. Out.
Thank you so much for your contribution, Tanti. Mr. Barath, I'm told that we have to wrap up this evening's program. Where do you stand as it relates to moving forward and your political career?
Well, I am on record as being a lifetime member of the UNC. I believe that this country has now outlived the political parties and the political systems and the way of governance that has brought us to 2018. I don't think that the country can survive more of this kind of politics from the parties that we've got. We need radical transformation of our political system. We need to have constitutional reform in Trinidad and Tobago that addresses the real problems that the population suffer. Our constitution is, 40-odd years old. And so therefore it's no longer relevant to the needs of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. It is no longer relevant to our lifestyle here in Trinidad and Tobago. You know, we quote the Westminster system when it's convenient.
Right.
Okay, we adhere to the Westminster system. But you know, in the Westminster system, once a political leader or a prime minister loses an election, he or she steps down. In Trinidad or in the Caribbean, that doesn't happen. You could lose 6 and you're still holding on.
You're firing
No, I'm just
shots,
saying. No, but that's the point. We say one thing and we do another. And the point I'm making here is that the population are the ones who suffer as a direct result of these actions, inactions, policies, because we tolerate it, because we jump into one of the sections, right? It's either red or yellow, it's either straight or curly, it's either brown or black. We jump into one of the sections, and when politicians can't carve you up in terms of race, they carve you in terms of class. So you suddenly become a knife and fork as opposed to a grassroots, you know? So it's all kinds of way to carve up things to ensure that we remain segregated and separated as a population.
Mr. Barath, thank you so much. I mean, I wish we had a lot more time, but you're welcome to come back so that we could actually, get
My pleasure.
the cold truth about a lot of things as it relates to the UNC and his lifetime membership. Thank you so much to everybody for being a part of this evening's discussion. You have been looking at the cold truth with Kim Cole and Mr. Vasant Barath. We see you tomorrow.
Ladies and gentlemen, our country is falling apart.
The nation is in mourning tonight.
Our institutions are failing. Crime is out of control. It is our duty to fix it. We are touching on every sector of society. Race, class, and corruption. Nothing is off limit. No holds barred. The Cold Truth with Kim Cole. The power belongs to the people. Join us right here, Monday to Sunday, 4:45 p.m. to 5:45 p.m.